Junior secondary school kicks off amid anxiety. Grade 7 learners are beginning to settle down in their new classes, with many schools reporting high turnout. However, most parents were yet to buy new uniforms for a junior secondary level and conform to new guidelines issued by the Education Ministry. What does that mean, Ndu?
It means that we're in a mess of untold proportion.
Aye.
Yes.
Don't be so dramatic.
Even nice.
Hey.
That is a dramatic.
Hey.
And it's still January, no?
No, it's not.
It's early in the morning.
Okay,
It's early
sorry.
in the morning.
Let's wait until 11 o'clock and then we can say
then
it is a mess. Okay, so for now, it's okay. Around 11:30, call us back here. Let's tell
There are
you.
all signs of a mess, but it's not yet a mess.
No.
Okay, so
There, Nduta said, it's still early.
It's still
Don't
early.
say things with such catastrophic meaning at this hour.
Kawa, we have two guests in the studio, Nduta Kangethe, in brackets, Jane Mwangi, and Mutheu Kasanga. They're here to talk about this transition into junior secondary and the CBC and everything. But how we welcome our guests is with the day's proverb.
Yes, our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the country of Namibia.
Nice.
An old monkey never forgets to climb trees.
Alright.
An old monkey
Yes,
never forgets to climb trees.
yes. The operative word here is monkey, not old. Yes,
To climb trees, as in something that you must do as of duty, or how to in terms of knowledge.
old, old. Did I say I participated in making this proverb?
I'm asking a question.
No. Did I not just read the proverb?
Okay, sorry. No
Okay.
thanks, I beg.
But anyway, now ask the question. What were you asking?
An old monkey never forgets to climb trees. It says pointing towards duty, to as in you must climb a tree in order to get something else done. So you never forget how to do it. Or is it saying how to climb trees in terms of knowledge? That is something that you do on a regular, so you never really forget how to do it. Could be one of the two, isn't it?
You know, climbing trees for monkeys, from what I've observed from National Geographic, is they tend to live up on those trees.
Second nature.
Yes,
Exactly.
that's City of Nairobi trees for monkeys, okay? So whether they are going about their daily business of foraging for food or they're just hanging out, they're in trees. So one doesn't quite forget what one does on a daily basis, just as a matter of course.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's like you don't forget to breathe.
You actually do not forget to breathe. Yes. And if you do, you will remember.
Ladies, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mutheu Kasanga has been here before. Mutheu is an education expert.
Yes.
Now you sit on the board of KEPSA's Education Sector Board. You have also sat and led the Kenya Private Schools Association and very many other things. You're an education practitioner.
Yes.
Yeah.
A
Nduta
teacher to boot.
and a teacher to boot. That's important.
Yes.
It's very, very important. Nduta can explain.
It's really
So the way she sent us the name Nduta Kangethe and then put in brackets Jane Mwangi.
Okay. So which of the two are your nicknames?
none. All of them are my names. I'm going to blame that my mother was Catholic, the first instance.
Okay.
The Catholics do like giving people many names. So in between there's Irene. All of them are my names. Yeah, so socially, I am known as Nduta Kangethe, and then at work, I'm known as Jane Mwangi. Yes, so really that's it.
Oh, so Jane Mwangi ni jina ya M-Pesa.
Yes.
So ungesema.
Sikuwa nimefikiria it can be that simple.
Okay. Jade is the head of secretariat at the Kenya Association. Sorry, Nduta is the head of secretariat.
No,
You're enjoying-
Irene.
You're enjoying this more than you should.
She's the head of secretariat at the Kenya Association of International Schools. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
CBC gotten to that level where the first cohort has finished with the primary level. They're now going into the second, which is the junior secondary school. Why are you not calling it junior high school? Anyway, the junior secondary school. And we are now observing the transition period. Mwalimu, how's it been?
Surprisingly seamless, given
Surprisingly?
that given that the expectation was like, I don't know, total
Second
implosion.
coming of God.
You know, like like she says, second coming of God or something. It's just happened, and I think people are a bit disconcerted by Joe. It's just happened. It's just gone on. Of course, parents were very scared of the idea that these kids might have to change schools. So the recommendation of the Working Party that they can remain in the primary schools they are in as we phase out, because we have two curricula going on. So one is phasing out. So if we had pushed to secondary, that fear of a double intake would have perhaps broken the secondary school system. But all along, the idea of junior secondary, senior secondary is to allow the country to build up infrastructure to catch up with our population growth. And remember, this is not about infrastructure is not about CBC. Infrastructure is simply about our
Education
and
No.
our population growth.
population.
Yes, because whether we like it or not, next week is Form 1, you'll still hear about overcrowding.
Yeah.
So it's not a CBC issue. We have an infrastructure problem. And that's what needs to be fixed. And I think, my personal opinion here, Nigeria is a country with a massive population, and they have the 633 curriculum. And this is how they did it, expand the primary schools, staff them correctly. So I think we are on the right track here. Yeah, no matter how I think like right now we are all looking for a bit of news. There's not much going on.
Jesus.
I mean, we are hungry, we are what? So you're looking for news and creating it somehow. The reality on the ground is that actually this thing has worked.
So there's a smooth transition.
There are hitches with redeployment, because I think that TSC has held down too many graduate teachers, and now they're having to go through their records to bring them up. There's about 17% of the total primary school working population in the government side has a qualification above the primary one. The primary one is called a P1 training certificate. Sawa. So many people, 17%, have upgraded themselves. They have got degrees, they have got but they have been kept down in the primary school sector. And this is the population that it is hoped that can now plug in seamlessly into the JSS. And if we do that, imagine this thing will work. And I believe TSC is doing that. I think there are hindrances like in the morning I was reading about delocalization, and then that delocalization is also affected by issues of places that are hard to staff. Do you just remove people you had sent there?
Because
Who is going to go there
home.
if there are no teachers there in the first place? They are...
Good opening.
Yes.
Good opening, Mutheu.
Yep.
Nduta,
Yes.
from what you've heard, is the ground the way Mutheu is actually describing it?
I would say, for me, I agree totally with her, and there are areas that I think could do with some improvement. There was the feeling that we would implode. Actually, let me rephrase that. There was the expectation that we would implode. And I think as Kenyans, we are very unkind to ourselves and very blind to what we deal with. We have 13 million plus children. We are one of the youngest countries in the world. And every year, and when you count our 15-year-olds to our 40-year-olds are fertile. So every year, more getting born. So that system will keep getting overloaded unless we can talk. So JSS was the real 2023, whether we had said it is domiciled in primary school or said it will go to secondary school. 2023 was always the year that was going to test the patience of Kenyans. It was always going to be that year. I would say that it has gone well. Children are in school. And we also like to forget the resilience of our teachers. These people do know what they are doing. They really do know what they are doing. These are the same children they have managed years on end. All that is required is a lot of retooling. We speak from experience. And a lot of patience. Will it be perfect? No. Will you get to some places where there'll be no books because they've not learned it? Yes. Are there teachers who are yet to quite be trained because we use a cascade model? Yes. But is it a massive failure? No. If I was even to grade it on a scale of 0 to 10, I would give it maybe a 6. and say there is room for improvement. We're also missing what this transition will do for us. We have 21% of children or more who go to secondary school boarding. I think that's one of the highest in the world. It is not okay. It is time we started thinking about our children being home with their parents. And JSS is providing that opportunity because with time I anticipate that while it is domiciled in primary schools, it will also be domiciled in day secondary schools. And with time, perhaps maybe another 3 years, they will require that boarding schools establish day wings. And that is a step in the right direction for us as a country because we are young. We ought to embrace proximity. Let people go to school and go back home to their parents. And for those ones who choose boarding schools, let them make that choice. Or for those ones who need them, like Northeastern and places like that, then let them do that. But it is time we had that conversation, and JSS is doing that. And then to speak to structure, I think one of the greatest things that has happened is that JSS was retained as a secondary level. So there is the feeling, there's a misunderstanding that because it is domiciled in primary schools, it's a primary level of education. No, it is secondary level, and that is important. That is very good for us as a country. It is how countries like Thailand, when they did that, it is how they transformed. You've always had that myth that we were at one time we were at par with Singapore, we were developing the same. That is again a myth, it is in our heads. What Singapore did was transform their education. They dealt with their human capital so that they lessened their years of primary school, increased their years of secondary school, because it is at that level that you begin to get, that you introduce high order thinking skills, that children have access to a broad curriculum, get to know themselves, get to know what they can do, what they cannot do. A country begins to plan around, this is what we need in terms of skills. This is what we have at the moment. This is what we are doing. So it is good that we have increased and retained JSS as a secondary level of education. It is not perfect, in my opinion, and this is just me as a person. Communication, for me, is always where I feel government drops the ball. Because if you look at the guidelines, they are robust. They are fantastic. I brought you a copy. They are really good. They address everything. But the question is always, who knows?
Let me ask you that. Do go ahead.
Yeah, I think
Who knows?
Sure. One thing that we talk about the structure, and for me, that presents an issue.
Okay.
I think it's fantastic that this is actually happening, to spread out the years of a secondary education, again, because that's where you hone in on those particular skills when it comes to socialization of a child. Now, the infrastructure that is necessary to deliver this education at a secondary level, unfortunately, is not at the primary school level where this JSS is domiciled. Is it?
I will say this, It is again not as bad as we imagine. Let me speak for public sector. Much as after this, I may then go and have a compliance issue. Maybe this will help. Anyway, it's tongue in cheek. Anyway, so 50% or maybe 55% of primary schools have a secondary school next to them.
Yes.
So let me use the school I went to high school. I went to St. Anne's Leoki. St. Anne's Leoki High School, there is Leoki Primary. They share a compound. That is about maybe 40 to 50% of our schools. So they can use the facilities in the secondary school,
Which are being used by
The secondary school.
yes,
student.
and it works. It works. And I'm not saying that to downplay a situation. Really does work. We have, and then you must consider that there are areas in this country that because people did not want to go to these schools, they are thoroughly undersubscribed. There are those ones that are very crowded, and then there are those ones where, they are not enough. And then planning is a thing. Let me use our schools as an example. If you come to the campus I sit in, Brayburn-Gitanga Road, we have maybe 700 children on that campus, or 600, from babies to A-level. We do not build a lab for A-level, a lab for O-level, a lab for. We share facilities. You plan around it. You timetable, and it works. That is the level of organization that we are expecting to see with JSS. Now, if it is not happening, and I think that this is where the fourth estate comes in, because that is what we must check. We must go and actually make sure that it is happening, that timetabling is happening correctly, these children can access, and so on and so forth. The other thing we should concern ourselves with is who is teaching, because that question seems to get lost somewhere, is who is teaching this curriculum.
Should be teaching this curriculum. Let's start there.
Mutheu described it really well. She said a graduate teacher in primary can deliver this curriculum. I believe the same. Or a secondary school teacher can deliver that curriculum. I believe that is also the case. I don't think a P1 teacher can teach JSS. Actually, let me rephrase that. I know.
Cannot
teach JSS.
No.
Why?
Because we did not, we played with that curriculum for teacher training. We just didn't train to deliver.
It's that they haven't been trained? Or is that they lack the aptitude?
No, it is not a lack
Let me
of
explain. Let me explain.
Yes.
The teacher training is level specific, okay? And before CBC, we had what we call the P1 certificate. It is a certificate course, yeah? And certificate courses were designed to teach in early years and in primary. That's it. Their content, their pedagogy, absolutely everything in there was meant for primary. We had a diploma for secondary and degree for secondary. It was called the DTE, Diploma in Teaching. And that diploma in teaching was crafted for teachers to teach in secondary. So you get your 2 teaching subjects. Secondary school teachers typically teach 2 subject areas and perhaps sport. Sawa. And that is how the teaching qualification is organized in Kenya. So this P1 certificate is not meant for primary. And for secondary, it's not content-wise. That teacher is not equipped. And that is why those who go up and follow up with extra education on their own are now the ones who are being targeted to be redeployed to teach JSS.
That's a rather discriminatory system, isn't it?
No, it's just a simple thing.
It works.
It isn't.
It works for the levels.
It's levels.
No, it's discriminatory because
no, it isn't.
It's limiting.
Yeah, but that's the way training
But
in
that's how we
education.
train.
Yeah,
Why must it be so?
The same thing. Let me give you a quick answer. Do you expect a diploma holder to go and lecture first years?
Why not? First years haven't got any qualifications. Why can't a diploma holder? This is somebody who's gone through the system, has learned some more things. Why can't they
If we ever did that, we would be bringing down this country. Teaching is a profession. It's like saying a clinical officer can do a major, neurosurgery, brain surgery. They can't.
Actually, the training doesn't permit. But you see, these are distinct professions. A clinical officer and a nurse are seen as adjuncts to doctors. They are not. They are distinct disciplines on their own.
The same
and
in
they're
education.
trained.
Actually, the same. Primary ECD teacher is a profession. Then primary school teacher, that is a profession.
You know where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
The age at which a child needs the most critical input. That's the age where you train people the least. Isn't there a problem there?
That is a Kenyan.
It's a Kenyan issue. It's a Kenyan issue.
It's not a global
It's
issue.
not
That's
a
a Kenyan
yeah.
issue. In fact, if I remember correctly, you guys in your the task force before this, what was it called? Fatuma. Actually discussed that a lot because we do ourselves a great disservice. First and foremost, we have made the teaching profession. We've almost branded it. If you don't do well, by all means, do well.
Hujapata marks hata ya kukupeleka ECD.
It's a landing place.
Yes, it's a dumping place, and it is sad. Because if you look at countries like Japan, it is actually whatever their A is, they take from the third percentile, the highest one, to teach. But we did that. The other way around, and then we reinforced an attitude, and it is not right. So if you come to international schools, for example, or even in other countries, you will have a whole professor doing ECD, and it is fine.
Now you've gotten the point,
yes,
because
and it is okay.
If you're talking about looking into the future and the education system that we have meeting the needs, we had this discussion yesterday. Now, should we then therefore not have a situation where when we even recruit people into the teaching profession, should they not be our best and brightest?
I agree completely. Now you say that. In fact, let me give you a challenge. I'm sure because you're who you are, you have massive following on social media.
We do.
I assume. Go write that and then tell me the reaction. We have done something about our attitudes. You will be told you're closing off. You're being, it's the other way around. You'll be seen as discriminatory.
Yeah.
It is the same reason
But
why.
you send an A student to go and become a teacher.
Jesus, you have
You see
no
the reason-
the esteem. What is wrong with
But
it?
we've
it
done
is-
something about it. I want to reinforce that because now with the Fatuma Chege report, you know now the minimum entry into the profession. You need to qualify to become a teacher is now diploma. You know,
And
it's
it
a
was
simple.
time.
You know,
It was time.
because in Kenya, like she said, we are a young country, so you can't. The attempt to even raise the bar a little actually caused an implosion of teacher training that this working party is trying to fix. So for us, we have access issues that are, you know, in education we deal with 4 parameters. We deal with access, equity,
Quality. It's 3. Access, equity,
no, quality and choice. Finally,
We agreed. You agreed?
no.
Congratulations.
I mean, I'm there because why else do we have this standard 8 selection things? It's about choice.
It's a choice.
Yeah. So you get to choose your alliance and then you work. KCP is like a massive interview. That's it. It's all purpose is
It's
just to
a
slot
placement.
you into the school you want to be in. So if you want to be in alliance, go do whatever it takes to get there. You know. So we have those 4 parameters that we work with. Okay. And the most important is access. And sometimes we for us to have universal education, literally almost have to sacrifice the other 3. Yeah. Think about that child in Maralal, in Mandera, and whatnot. At this particular point in time, how many years after independence, we are saying we just want a school first.
Yep.
First put 1 teacher. We will figure out the rest.
we'll
You
sort
get.
out.
While here in Nairobi, we are hearing stories of people storming TSC, demanding, I want to be removed from that one place where you are most
To be
needed.
brought back to my home.
Yes, I need to be
Civilization.
brought. You get. So as long as we are having issues of access, I kid you not, we will first have to work at getting any teacher first in there. We cannot afford to come and say we want only 30 people who got A's to become teachers. First, we want teachers. So we will train whoever needs to be trained to go there. And we will do whatever it takes. I mean, for how many years was there affirmative action for training for northeastern areas? It still has not sorted out the
Over
issue
30
of
actually.
staffing those areas. And here's the problem. When we delocalize teachers and take them there, because we need them there,
Chaos.
the youngest kids are the ones who suffer. These kids come in speaking in mother tongue. You bring in somebody from Mukambani and plonk them in Maralal. They can't
They don't
even understand the child.
Exactly.
How is this child going to get the foundational skills? Yet we all recognize that teacher must be there because there's no choice. You know, we are caught in
Between a rock and a hard
access.
place.
You're damned if you do.
Yeah, damned
Damned
if you
if you
don't.
don't. I wanna
So
bring
at
the
the
conversation
moment,
back.
we still need to keep churning out the teachers in huge numbers because we have these access issues 50-something years
Down the road.
line. And they have been proved. Let me tell you, the last 15, 10 years, 13 years, these last 15 years, eish,
What has improved?
the country has phenomenally changed. Number one, the devolution of ECDE has put money into nursery schools. There are places that saw a first government nursery school with devolution. Yeah. In 2013, we were talking about 80% ECD being provided by the private sector. We are down to what, 60, 62? That the government is now playing a role. Now we don't have cases of where kids walk into standard 1 and they have never been to school before. So therefore, there's something good happening.
It is slow.
It is slow.
We acknowledge what's happening.
Yes.
However slow it is.
We
I want to bring the
we need to
conversation
take
back
away,
to, I want
given
to-
that
I
we
want
are
to bring
seeing
the conversation back
governors
to the
rejecting
situation
this room.
on the ground. Children have reported to grade 7.
Yes.
We talked about teachers, we've talked about facilities. Okay, teachers, you've said in the primary schools, about 17% of the teachers in primary school are capable of teaching the junior secondary.
Yes.
17% of the teachers in primary school are capable of teaching the junior secondary.
Correct.
The junior secondary is in 100% of all primary schools. So who's teaching? There is no junior secondary in secondary school, is there?
Not yet.
Okay.
Well, private
100
sectors have.
Private sector is a different story, but,
That's a different
but it's
story.
tiny.
That's
It's
a
a
different
tiny
story.
percentage.
So, if 100% of the grade 6s have gone to the same school in grade 7, where only 17% of teachers are available to teach them, who's teaching JSS? Number 2, about 50% of schools in Kenya, like you've told us, Nduta, have sister primary, sister secondary.
Yes.
50% do not have sister primary, sister secondary. 50% of schools do not have access to labs.
Which they need
And there's
at
other
the secondary
facilities.
school level.
What's going to happen with that? Let's take a break. It's 7:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Nduta Kangethe is the head of secretariat at the Kenya Association of International Schools. She's very passionate about the education sector. Equally passionate is Mutheu Kasanga, who is a member of the KEPSA Education Board and a player in the education sector. Actually, these two have been in this conversation of the rollout of CBC for the last 7 years.
Correct.
So they've been here with it. Nduta, you haven't. Yours has been what, 2.5? No, it's been many.
I would like not to be lumped as the same age as Mutheu.
It's not about age.
I'm playing.
7:30. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The conversation continues. So let's address those issues in terms of who's teaching JSS and do we have proper facilities in the JSS?
Well, let me quote the guidelines in terms of where children should go. So these guidelines state, let me just read it out. In high density areas in urban informal settlements, primary schools with an enrollment of less than 45 learners in the transitioning class or those lacking the basic facilities to domicile at JSS will serve as feeder schools to other JSS within a 2-kilometer proximity. In geographically expansive, low density and insecurity prone areas, as well as for learners with special needs and disability, the government through the Ministry of Education will implement affirmative action as appropriate, regardless of the enrollments in the transitioning class. Now, what we should have had before this was a proper school transport system. Because how do these children get to school if they're supposed to feed into this? And I suppose maybe those are some of the issues that the current presidential working party has to develop. Because if you go to every primary school, actually, let me use the example of conferences for heads. Every conference for heads I attend, I get very shocked because I see every school, even the one I didn't imagine, has a bus. But during the day, that bus is packed. Yet that bus, if we pay taxes, should be able to bus children from these feeder schools to the actual JSS. So we have things we need to sort out. And I think that is what we must do. We must really ensure that they are sorted out. Or next year at a time like this, we will be discussing the same issue. And then there's also the small matter of after grade 7 and 8, where will they go? To grade 9. I don't think those classrooms exist or those facilities exist at the moment. So there is that. I will say again, is it perfect? No. Is there a plan? Yes. What is our role in it to ensure that it is actually done by first and foremost ensuring that parents know about this? If it were possible, I would expect that at some point somebody will rock up with a list of which school can offer JSS government, which schools can offer JSS private, so that I know it's the primary school that my child goes to. Is it a feeder school? Can it offer JSS? Things of that nature. That should be, I think, for me, the first thing that should happen. Number 2, I expect that maybe within a month or 2, because now it is late anyway, that somebody will actually tell us the school transport plan. This is how this will work. Your child will go to school. If they have a lab lesson and there is no secondary school near them, but one is close 2 kilometers away, this is how they will get there. Because we are in that season. There are many of us. We have to. It is the only way this will work.
Okay.
As
Yes.
teachers.
So as we speak now, none of that is happening.
I think it is on paper. I haven't seen it happen myself.
Even if you
Have
look at it
Mutheu?
on paper.
In my area, when I spoke to my sub-county director, and I wanted just to see, because the public, there's like I have in Athi River town itself, there are like 3 public schools, and there's about another 3 big day schools. And
secondary.
These are public. I don't private. I can go there, but let's, because that's where the bulk of our population. That's
public.
where when we ask ourselves what is happening, actually our minds are imagining what public schools look like and what is going on. And one of the public schools is massive. It's called KMC Primary, and it used to hold, do you remember people who used to be called tax tutors and tax centers? These are advisory centers where teachers meet and get resources and get ideas and things like that. And the school managed to mobilize, I think one of the other schools actually managed to mobilize and convert some of these rooms that ceased to be used as whatever into the digital devices and whatnot, and they have got SEPU, the school equipment production unit, to sort of start facilitating these. They are called mobile labs. Yes, they are called mobile labs, and these are demonstration. You get a complete kit that allows a teacher to do things with the sciences in a class, and these things have been here. This is not a reinvention of the wheel here we are talking about. This unit has been here forever. And if you went to school like me a while ago, you remember they're the ones who used to supply us with pencils and books and exercise books. Those days all books used to be labeled SEP way back when. Nyayo time. So these units are actually being rolled out, and I've seen a good number of private schools as well, especially the urban high density where land is not available, using these units. I expect these government units, like Jane is saying, some of these government units to completely kick up production and rollout and whatnot. If some public schools are already doing it and they are not in the city, these are, uku, you can tell already that there is stuff happening. But because we are not in the public sector, the majority of us, sorry to say, we imagine that things are not happening. There is stuff happening, and let's give credit where it is due.
Okay,
yeah,
I understand that.
And
completely.
back to the question of who is teaching JSS, because now you've taken a simple mathematics and assumed that 17% is a very small number. 17% is a massive number, because secondary school teachers, on the whole, teach 2 or 3 subjects. So one teacher is already taking care of. Imagine a class. A school has this many whatever. You're going to load shed all the other teaching, and other primary school teachers will plug in there because there are 6 years of primary. It's not 8. So the workload for primary school teachers has reduced. Yeah, and then you move these teachers up. It is not as difficult as perhaps the numbers look. When you calculate like that, it is possible for a school to have 5 teachers who have upgraded out of a staff of 45, and they can carry a load.
But though it's also possible that very many schools, hundreds of schools, do not have more than 2 teachers who qualify to teach JSS.
And this is where delocalization...
When you talk about this 17% is not equally distributed.
Correct. This
It's
is where
most
now
likely
those
to
issues...
be distributed more in the urban areas.
Correct.
In the rural schools,
Correct.
there'll be a school that has only one teacher, the head.
In fact, you
Who
will
could
find
teach
not even that. You will find schools that have one TSC teacher.
The rest
Let's call it out. Like we started that conversation there. There are schools that are in places that are difficult to staff. Like I said, we have
difficult to staff.
Difficult to
Nobody
staff.
wants to
Nobody
go.
wants to go there.
No, that's not entirely true.
It is.
I'll tell you why I'm saying it's not entirely true. It's how we phrase it. It's how we have decided to name it. But there are people who could go there. Why aren't these people going there? Or why don't we ensure that people who could go there actually go there?
It is
Whether we like it or not, we do have, whether we accept it here on this studio, whether we accept it or not, there are hard to staff areas.
Yes,
Fact.
yes.
There's also a policy issue, and
Yes.
and there I will concede completely. We have conflated qualification of a teacher and what can we call it, and what TSC wants as a teacher to teach in a public school. So we close out the profession to people who'd be willing to go there. Let me use what can I call it? Let me use Northeastern as An example. And it will not be tidy, but you will get where I'm going with this. In Northeast, there are professionals that live there, right? Many of them, particularly in the towns, so to speak.
And they don't all come from Northeastern.
No, but they don't.
Yes.
There are very many of them who, there are quite a number, and I know this for a fact, who could teach, even did B.Ed.
Yeah.
But because of one rule or another that exists within our policy documents, maybe the two-subject rule or whatever, they are not regarded as a teacher who can teach in a public school. They will not be absorbed. They exist. They live there. They would like even to teach, but they can't even apply for that TSC job because they've been told they are not a teacher. Consider the cadres of professionals we have who would like to go back. In this country, I think it is easier to teach in university than it is to teach even at secondary school. So we have those endemic issues around. We need a very honest conversation around who do we call a teacher. If you're willing, we have an access issue, right? At the moment, if you're willing, and we can then find a way to bring you into this profession, whether we teach you pedagogy for a certain period, whether we absorb those ones that are already there, we could go there. Now, in terms of hard to staff areas, I want to agree with Mutheu. The truth of the matter is there are places where teachers will fight tooth and nail not to go. They will fight tooth and nail not to go, and it is just what it is. Yes.
Let me just go back to the earlier conversation and ask the question, this new system, what is it intended? What's its purpose? What is it supposed to achieve?
CBC?
Yes. I mean, it's new, it's everything. What is it supposed to achieve? Short, medium, long term. What is it for? What is it doing that the 844 system did not do?
Long-term Thailand.
No. Singapore. This is the views of Jane Mwangi. Long term, what it is.
Not Nduta.
Gosh, Jesus. That's the same person. Well, long term, what CBC was aligning, on the face of it, really, aligning our education curriculum to our Constitution and Vision 2030. That is the definition on the books, right? And the reason that was necessary was because we mangled 844, what it was in 1985 versus what it was by 2005 were two different things entirely, and we mangled it so much that we could not go back. We took out everything. We took out tech, we took out music, we took out everything that gave it a soul. Let me use those words. So we mangled it, and CBC was an attempt. Actually, is
to what end?
To make sure that our children have what it needs to survive, to survive in their world now and in the future, and with flexibility. Because let me rephrase.
That goal will not be reached.
It will be reached.
It will not be reached. It
looks difficult now.
No, the
why do you say it won't be reached?
The goal isn't difficult. The goal isn't difficult. We are looking at the symptoms, we're looking at the causal effect of a situation and not addressing what is it that makes a child realize their potential. Is it the system or is it the teacher?
It is both. With the teacher, I think, in my opinion, being key, but it is both.
The teacher is key, in my opinion.
Yes.
Okay, now, if we do not fix this small matter of how it is we recruit our teachers, forget the training, recruit. Because there's this small matter again. These are all just small matters of really tiny little things of an attitude. The teaching profession isn't like any other profession. It's completely different.
In what way?
In this sense, there is no other profession that allows parents to give the authority of bringing up their children to a group of other people for the longest possible time. So when you have this situation where you have this duty, it's moral, it's everything that you could think of.
It's a vocation.
Yes. Should this person therefore not be among the people who is perhaps best trained and most willing to do this job? Because if you have this lofty goal and the person whom you've given the task of achieving it goes in half cocked, half baked, what do you think you are going to produce at the end of it?
I am so glad you're both teachers.
Good. Like for me, let me go to now my next pet project. One of the things that that has shifted the teacher of before and the teacher of now is what we call checking. Let me call it inspection and whatnot. Yeah? And this is where we've been hit hard as a profession by changing norms and things, and we didn't have our own stance to it. And the one stance that actually worked then was very hated by the profession itself. There is no profession that doesn't have a body that cross-checks quality.
Super intense.
Yeah?
Yes.
And that is what made teachers of long ago better than the teachers of now. Why? Because then if you are a bad teacher, the inspectors would hound you out of the profession.
Yeah.
Right now, it is a one profession where you read in the papers. Just check. Every 3 days, you'll find like a small column, teacher defiled student.
Well,
You
that
know-
one who
And it
had
moves on.
children swimming.
Swimming in the
ground.
dust. Why would that? And we all laughed at that video. I hated
funny.
it. Because if that was a private school, that teacher in the next instant would be home. But in the government, a teacher can do this on the soil. What happens if that child happens to go to Mombasa and fall and decides, I was taught swimming, and jumps into the ocean? Whose responsibility is it? You know, there is no checking. There is no robust
Quality assurance.
checking. Yeah, we just come and say, you see, inspectors, we recommend you do this.
Can I ask a broader question?
Yeah.
Here?
So what is not
So
checked
because
doesn't get done.
I think it's in
And
line
that's
with what
important.
you're saying here. Look at the national budget, and we had this conversation here. When we look at education as a whole, if it's possible to do that with some of these issues that we're discussing today, do you feel, as practitioners in education in the country, with what we are seeing, some of the things that we're highlighting today, with some of the issues, whether we want to admit it or not, that there are bumps right now as grade 7s go to school that should have been worked on? This document is a document. The actualization of the document is something totally different that, unfortunately, whether we want to admit it or not, has not been done, has not been actualized. Now, with the highest budget allocation in the country every budget year after something else, are we doing a service to children when it comes to education in this country, or a disservice?
Let me say this. We are not doing our children. It'll be a yes and
It's
no.
okay, you can just say it.
Yes, I'm trying to find balance so that
It's
I
not a
speak the
disservice,
truth.
but it's
We are
can
selling
always do
ourselves
better.
short. Now, in terms of, I think there is what we can do long term, short term, and mid term. The short term is these guidelines, so to speak. We're in the Ubuntu season. Share facilities, give of yourself. If you are a head teacher, do not wait to be told. And this is, do not wait to be told what to do. Pick up these things, walk to your colleague head teacher over at, at the secondary school. Actually take this up as a vocation.
Yeah, say,
that
I
is
need
very
this many lessons
yes.
of
That
lab
is
work.
very that is very
Every
basic.
2 weeks or
Yeah,
something.
that is very basic. That is these guidelines. Will it sort out the problem? No. It is a band-aid, so to speak, as we look at other things. Mid-term, and this is where I hope I'm really looking forward to read the report from the Presidential Working Party. We have to discuss education financing, and at long last in this country, we have to tell ourselves the truth. When we say free primary education, when was it ever free? Even in 2003, when it was introduced, let us speak very frankly, when was it ever free? And yet, it is our biggest budget line item, isn't it? So we have an issue of wastage or an issue of reallocation. We need to discuss how we fund education and what we fund. We are a young country. We will not be like the UKs or the USs. That time is past. We have to discuss. I mean, I like finally to hear this. I like that I can hear this government talking about if I pay school fees in school, if I pay school fees in a private school, how is it possible that I suddenly can't pay a fraction of those fees in high school, and therefore I'm competing with a needy child for the same resources. Yeah. It is a discussion, and yes, basic education is a right. Free basic education is a right. But we have to call ourselves as Kenyans to a meeting and actually discuss, when was this education ever free? What does it mean? What does it cost to educate a child? And then allocate resources appropriately. Also, something else we can do short term that will have very long term effects is actually discuss the endemic issues in education. Curriculum is deployed or it is enforced by people. If we do not deal with the question of who deals with that, who delivers this curriculum, we will have failed. Yeah. So let us unpack the teaching profession and say, as a country, is it time we actually had the discussion around what to do with a constitutional commission that is answerable only to itself, therefore cannot be directed by anybody else. Yet it is the home it is the home of our future, so to speak. Isn't it time we actually had that discussion? Isn't it time we talked about how it is possible for that commission to be a regulator and an employer and the home of standards? How can it check itself? Isn't it time we actually talked as a country around standards? Quality assurance. Let us discuss how it is possible that quality assurance exists for private schools only. I can say that because it is the truth. Nobody will walk up to a public school that has no toilets and say, shut this down. It is not right that students should come here. I promise you the day that happens, they will improve. Because whether it is a community that rises up or government that rises up, then there'll be an improvement. But it is time we had an honest conversation around
about everything else,
about quality assurance, because you can't fix a system with a curriculum.
How do you get quality if the people who are supposed to move that sector are not the best quality that you have?
To be honest, and I'll answer that.
I'm a dog with a bone in this one here.
Yes, no, and I will say this. The Ministry of Education has some of the best, most qualified, astute professionals I have met.
Are they the most committed?
Are they committed? Yes, I will say this. Because they are working with...
How committed are they really?
They are very...
If they are committed, we should not be having this conversation.
No, we will,
No.
And I will say, there's a reason I'm saying
we
that,
can't be saying, oh, let's appreciate the good things. But also we should in the future be asking ourselves,
because you're assuming...
If those people were committed, we would not be asking
you are assuming education works in a vacuum. We are in a society.
Okay.
Yes.
Are those in the education sector raising the right questions to the other parts of
severally? And this is why I can say it. I don't even work for them.
Those in the education sector have had 7 years. 7 years rolling out CBC. They are as confused today as they were last year.
No.
On what happens to our grade 7s.
Who is confused?
They are those in the education sector. Look at what they're saying. Children in some densely populated areas should go to this other school and find out how they can go to those schools.
In a 2-kilometer
radius, a completely inequitable system of education in this country. Nduta. Listen, Nduta. How many schools, how many secondary schools have adequate labs today?
What does that mean?
What does
adequate?
That mean?
Sorry, I'm sorry. I am that person.
How many
are the labs fit for purpose?
Well, the labs have been existing and kids have been sitting from 4 using those labs. What do you mean?
How many secondary schools actually have a lab for chemistry, for physics, for biology?
Yes,
that's not the standard.
Hold on.
The standard is biochem. In fact, you can have one lab for all three. That is the standard. It is based on population of schools.
Yes.
Okay.
A majority of the population.
That standard is not faulty. It is based on the curriculum.
A majority reports have shown a majority of the secondary schools in Kenya, those day sub-county schools, have one lab.
Yes.
Okay. For a population of about over 1,000.
Yes.
Is that adequate?
And I was coming to that.
Surely.
Hold on. Let me.
And now you're adding grade 7s to come and use the same facility.
Hold on. You assume, Eric. Hold on. You assume, Eric. You assume, whether or not they were joining at grade 7 or at Form 1, they would have faced the same conditions. That is why exactly. And I'm coming.
That is the issue.
Yes, and that is what I'm saying. We have.
Those in charge are very qualified. They are the best. They are committed.
Now hold on. Let me finish my point.
Yes.
Education does not exist within a vacuum. So in this country, our infrastructure, the way we do school infrastructure is thoroughly fragmented. Now, 27% funding education barely hits the mark. Like I said, we already 13 million. At the beginning of January this year, another million will get dumped in, and so on and so forth. And it will keep happening. That 27%, it is not enough.
Okay.
What we need, hold on.
Yes.
We need a
Imagine
plan.
the hour is
The hour
over.
is over.
Hold on, I have
Can
to
you
finish my
imagine?
point.
Can you imagine?
But we have to, it is a whole of society problem.
That's true.
Yes,
I
we have
agree.
to deal.
Whole of society problem. The leaders are those in charge in the Ministry of Education and Kina Mutheu who've been
In the
advising them.
Oh, well then.
All of a sudden.
Promotion I've got here.
You bus under the bus. Thank you
Under
for
the
joining us,
bus,
ladies.
promotion.
Mutheu Kasanga is an education expert. She is on the board of KEPSA Education Board, and Nduta Kangethe is the head of secretariat at the Kenya Association of International Schools, both very passionate about the education sector.